Let's do it. All right, man. Here we go. How you feeling?
Let's do it. Let's do it. It's July 26th, 2022. Happy Tuesday, everybody. You are listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is about to be episode 602.
Man, it's a big number. I was trying to think of what that number meant to me, and I can't think of anything. 602.
Man, you moved me on that one, man. My heart pitter patted. I got my eyes are glistening. I got tears coming down. You really nailed it with that one. Yeah. What does it mean to you? It means we've been consistent, and that's honestly really all it's meant. We've been consistent. We've come to you twice a week for the last, 6 years? Yeah, about 6 years. Yeah, I guess 6 years. What, September? We started this in October, November.
Yeah, we rounded up.
About 6 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so because I think Hayden was 8 or 10 weeks old when we started this. Man, the side eyes and the ugly looks I got back when he was a newborn, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go do the podcast. She was like, I don't even know what you're doing in there. And I was like, well, here we are, 602 episodes later. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We'll cover it all. We will do race recaps. We'll do race previews. We'll do a lot of swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back and relax, have an open and honest discussion about what we're going through as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We'll also talk a lot about what our current athletes are going through. We both work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking to do their first sprint triathlon or even 5K, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between. We will use the communication and feedback loop we have with them via Training Peaks, email, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We'll also frequently go into our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. A lot of awesome people in there. Great resource, experienced bunch. So don't be a lurker, be a participant in a sport that's super confusing. There's a lot of info out there. It's a safe place to ask questions and get limited sarcasm, but a lot of great info. So use that and utilize it. And we'll go in there every few weeks or so, I would say. I'm probably due for one actually now, to do a little Q&A session. We'll let our members post questions. We'll get to them as best we can. And I say best we can because usually 50 are posted. We get to like 3 because we kind of get sidetracked. But hey, listen, we do our best.
Hey.
But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda. We've had that since day one, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. I got to say, I'm a little bit of a lurker in our Facebook group, and it's hard to, like you just said, yeah, we try to get to everything, but there's a lot of things going on in there, and it's a really good, but I'll peek in there and be kind of impressed by, the questions and the answers and just the camaraderie in there. It's really nice. It's impressive.
Well, listen, there's 2 things. One, you're an outstanding lurker. But that's not a bad thing, because what you have to understand is that, and I do this myself because I used to be really bad at it back in the day when we first started this thing off first Facebook group, is that you can't just comment and walk away.
I know.
So once you engage, you have to commit, right? And committing means time. And then you have to ask yourself, all right, I've got the time to make a response. Like same goes for emails and text messages and phone calls. You can't it's not a one-way street, right? It's a back and forth, and you've opened a line of communication. So if you commit to commenting, you're committing to not just a comment, but a rebuttal and then a conversation, and you just have to be committed to that. So I think it's great that you're asking yourself those really deep, insightful questions like, I've got time to comment, but do I have time to see this through and have a conversation? And the answer is no. The answer is no. But I think it should also be said that we can kind of give ourselves, a very small infant-sized pat on the back that we've created a community we don't have to regularly police. right? You know, making sure people aren't being total assholes and, you know, posting things or answering questions that are irresponsible and unethical and just, you know, wrong. We don't have to do that. We got a pretty great bunch that, you know, pretty good at, they're great at policing themselves. I think I can count on like one hand in the last 3 years where someone's been like, hey, you know, someone posted something or said something you wouldn't like, you know, it's a heads up. And so I'll just go on there, pull the cord. Bye. See you later. Those people aren't with us anymore. But you know what? That's the kind of ship we run. So no, it's a great group. But yeah, in a summer or in a period of time where things are just getting busier and busier, you know, you got training, you're, you know, in the middle of a, you know, no man's land with the move situation, you got stuff going on, you got a life to live. So yeah, it's if you're going to comment, you got to be ready to have a conversation.
Yeah. A lot of times I'm always amazed at how, not necessarily in there, but like on Twitter or something, like I'll see a thing and it has, like, I'll just be seeing it for the first time and it already have like 27,000 comments or something like that. And I'll be just like, hey, I'm going to chime in. And like the whole thing is just gone, you know, everybody's over it already or whatever. And same thing. So I'll just kind of maybe leave the 97th comment on a thread and just sort of leave it in there and nobody will ever see it.
That's right.
Maybe a few people and they'll just thumbs down me.
Yeah, that's well. Here's the thing, man. If you really want to go, we'll get into triathlon here in a second. But if you really want to like low key lurk, you don't even comment. You just throw in like a really random like on someone's comment that could be like, "Yeah, man, good call." And you just kind of there's like there could be like way more like in depth and tons of commentary and you know 9-liners, and you give the guy it's like, "Yeah, good call," and you go in there and you drop the little like button. Mike Charlie likes. You're like, oh. He's watching. That's the kind of like mind tricks you got to play. You're like, he's still, just because he's not commenting, right? Because there's a lot of people, you know, especially on social media, that don't want you to know how much time they spend on it, so they just never like anything, right? They never like or comment, and they try to put off that, you know, little, hey, I'm just not on social media that much, you know, even though you're like, you know, screen time up 95% from last week, 8 hours and 34 minutes. And then every time you go on Facebook Messenger, boom, green light, Mike Terali online. You're like, that dude, he's trying to sneak one on. He's all about it. But yeah, there's a lot of mind tricks you can play in the social media game these days.
Yeah. There's my buddy Corey Coggins. He's got like a Twitter bird icon, but he's on there all the time. He never.
Corey was actually the person I was thinking of.
Oh, were you?
He'll send more screenshots from social media than I do.
That's it. Yeah.
Like, where did you see this? I'm like, I didn't think you were on it, but he's on it all the time. He's probably got one of like the check marks on Twitter too. That's probably like how big of a deal he is.
He's got like 3 followers. But
hey man,
I always have to remember who the hell is this again.
Do what?
So I have to remember who it is because it's a weird name too. You know, it's like CLGV 4.
That's right. He's gonna be low key. What this weekend was low key. Before we get into some thoughts and kind of observations from the weekend, you didn't race. You had a big training weekend in Wisconsin. You had Lake Placid going on. You had Ohio. You had the PTO Canadian Open, which was Saturday and Sunday. So before I kind of go into a whole lot of thoughts I had about watching all those and what was in a triathlon filled weekend, how was your training weekend in Wisconsin?
Oh, me? You're asking me?
Yeah, you. Yeah. How was your weekend?
Well, as you know, I'm still debating, and I think this that'll fit right into the conversation you were having earlier because I'm still debating. I mean, I basically had a quasi simulation Ironman weekend. I didn't go all the way, but it was in the ballpark, you know, Emily and I went up on Thursday, got up, walked out to Lake Monona and just jumped in by ourselves. I mean, it was like we had the whole lake to ourselves, except for the lake lawnmowers. Like I've never seen these things. Have you seen them before? They go through and they chop the weeds out.
Lawnmowers?
Yeah, they're like they almost look like tugboats or something, but they got conveyor belts on them and they got these paddle wheels on the side that I don't know how they do it, but they cut like seaweed or the weeds out, and then it flushes up, and then it goes onto their conveyor belt, and then they just take them off the lake. So they just they keep the weeds down. which I thought was really kind of interesting. So there was one out there, and we were kind of watching where it was going, because obviously you don't want to, get caught up in the lawnmower. But swam around for about an hour out in the lake. I was like, straight for me, which was kind of a nice thing. And of course, she outswam me, but that's just how that goes. And then when we were kind of coming around, we were doing small loops where the swim is, but we didn't go out much, past the ski ramp and all that. But and when we came back in, there was another one, and then there was another one, and another. There's like 4 lawnmowers out there. We're swimming around them. Anyway, I just brought that up because I had never seen those things before, but it's kind of interesting. And then Saturday we went out and did 2 loops. They kind of cruised it, but kind of worked it a little bit. And I'll tell you,
is the loops about 80 miles, just under 80?
Yeah, it was about 80 miles. Yeah. She had like 4,800 or something like that climbing, which is kind of good. I mean, considering I think that was about almost double my long ride for the year. So, but I felt pretty good. I honestly at about mile 60, I was ready to pull over and sign up because I was like, man, I feel good out here. And then about mile 80, I was like, whoa. It was because that course, the last 15 miles of that loop are the 3 bitches out there, and first of all, the first one, we were like, man, that's a little longer than we remember it. And then second one, that's a little steeper than I remembered. And then, so it was getting a little tricky at the end for me. But I felt pretty good out there. We did good. And then Sunday we had a long run, and it didn't feel terrible. So, but I just sort of wanted to see how I felt afterwards, and then yesterday went pretty decent too. So I think by the end of this week, I'll be willing to make my decision. But like you said, man, there's a little time because, these Ironman aren't selling out really, and I just want to make sure. I know it sounds, I'm not really hedging here. I'm just, trying to make sure.
Dude,
I can.
What's wrong with that?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I'm just saying, but I mean. Part of me is like, this is what I do. Why not just I feel like I could go do it. And if I could have that attitude just to kind of cruise it, but I just can't do that. So I'm just wondering if I, would be putting myself in a dumb spot.
I mean, I got a few questions for you. Mm-hmm. One, didn't you say after Ironman Chattanooga you weren't going to go into a race like that again?
Yeah.
And two, when was the last time you raced a 70.3?
Wow, I think that was Chattanooga before.
Right. Yeah. What?
All the mayhem.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, I think your thought process is valid, and there's a ton I want to cover today, but one of them is kind of what you're talking about, and it's called preparedness, and it's also called responsible, objective decision making. And if you've listened to this podcast for a long time, we got 600 plus hours of content, and Mike, our listeners probably know Mike, close to as well I know you, but you're competitive, you like to compete, and you don't have that mentality, or at least you haven't in the past, of like, hey, I'm just gonna go out there and have a good day, man. I'm gonna have fun. Like Chattanooga, you thought you were gonna maybe have that, and then you were pretty kind of down about it, the experience afterwards. Mm-hmm. And I was telling you, before we went on air, I was having a conversation with another athlete this or Friday that was signed up for Ironman Chattanooga, and they signed up for it last year, and then now work is totally different. They got a different job, they're in a different relationship, they're traveling a ton, and then one day she was like, hey, I'm out. I don't think it's a good idea. I'm too busy. I don't think I have the time to train the way that I want to train and do it the right way. So let's just not do it. I was like, perfect. I think it's a great idea. 24 hours later, I'm in. I got this. We got 6 weeks. I'm gonna dial things in. I don't have that much more in my schedule. Let's do it. And I was like, all right, something ain't right. So we scheduled a call, and we're talking through things. And one of the first things I said, and as a coach, and this too, my job isn't to tell you to do it or not to do it. Our job is to provide as much feedback and be as objective, and not encourage you one way or the other, but to provide all the facts and probably say things out loud might not want to say out loud, or you might want to hear. Or a lot of times athletes just want you to say it because it kind of lets them off the hook of decision making, right? They can tell your friends, my coach said it's not a good idea. Oh, that makes sense, instead of them feeling like they're the one making the decision. And I said, it's like, why are you back in? Like, oh, my friends, all these, my training partners were like, oh, you got this, you can train, only got 8 more weeks, you can dial it in, you got this. They were super supportive. And I was like, yeah, they don't have to do any of the training, right? They're not out there doing 5 hour, 6 hour long rides. They're not doing 2+ hour runs. They don't have your travel schedule. It's super easy to support someone and say those things when you ain't got to do jack. You just got to motivate with your words. And I was like, listen, it's not, I don't think, I asked a very simple question. I said, if I say don't do it and you should opt out of doing the full, would that make you more stressed or less stressed?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, it would immediately make me less stressed. And I was like, then I feel like we found our answer. It was like, and the amount of relief that she had at the end of this conversation, she was like, oh my gosh, already planning out the next 3 weeks of like these fun things she wanted to do, these like weekday rides or, splash and dash and like some things on Saturday and Sunday. And I was like, wow, you went from stressed out and uncertain to planning out all these fun experiences you can have while still getting in shape. And at this point in life for you, it sounds like feeling and being fast and strong is what you want to feel, not enduring long training days and feeling burnt out and feeling like you're being slow.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, and I said this to her, and I do think it's important to say is that I do see the 70.3 distance becoming the most popular distance in triathlon, if it's not already, for a lot of reasons. But the main one is there's been this huge shift, especially in North America, the last 2 to 3 years, where, when you got into the sport, when I got into the sport, if you weren't sitting at your computer when registration went live on Monday at noon Central Time or at noon, location or race location time, you probably weren't getting in. Right, you probably weren't getting in, even if you were there. Races like Florida, Arizona, Lake Placid, these like Wisconsin, these iconic North American races that have been around forever. You could be there and get your time zones mixed up, and you could come to the registration window an hour late, and you wouldn't even get a spot. You'd be done, sold out immediately. Those days are gone. Arizona's still open. Florida's still open. Wisconsin's still open, right? Chattanooga still open. Maryland still open. California still open. Like there are so many fulls open, and the majority, especially, and we're just talking like North American calendar here, are after August or after like September and on, right? So you've got all year. And so what I really think a lot of athletes should do, and I know I've deviated way from, you're maybe doing a full in Wisconsin, but it kind of falls in the same thing, is that I really think we're going to get to a point where athletes are going to make the decision on their own, or coaches are going to encourage it and say, listen, instead of projecting or wanting or thinking you have a full in you a year from now, a whole year, right? And putting that as like your big thing for the year, aiming really, really high, and anything below that is going to be a failure or, or a drop. What people need to start doing is, hey, I'm going to sign up for some sprints and some Olympics. Right, I'm going to pick 1 or 2 70.3s to do before July or August, and I'm just going to get in some really, really awesome, fast, strong 70.3 shape. And then I'm still going to be getting faster. I'll still be getting stronger. I'll still be doing triathlons. Still be trying to get better. But then if I see that, hey, I've gotten faster and stronger. I've been 70.3. So this is awesome. Like this fits into my life well. Then you can look 3-4 months down the road and say then, right, April, May of next year, you know what? I think, listen, I've got time for a full. Stress is down. My work, and relationship life is at a point where I can manage this. I think I'm going to do a full. And then you sign up for the full. Instead of thinking you have it in you a year out, it's like we don't have to do that anymore. And it's a huge, huge blessing for most people. But on the flip side, a lot of people need it a year out. They need that thing. Yeah. You're usually one of them. They need that big, big, hairy, audacious goal hanging out there, or they might not do anything. So it's like this. We've created this monster that is, you have to do an Ironman, and anything less is just not even close to being good enough. and we've kind of created our own monster of burnout and slower times and and people just quitting the sport in general, and then a whole other slew of like do not starts and then DNFs, and it's not good for the sport. That's why I think 70.3 is going to become the most popular distance if it's not already headed there.
Yeah, and the only problem I have with that is for some reason I'm a little bit more intimidated by a 70.3 than I am the full right now, just in a go after it kind of way. You know, I think I started training for Chat 70.3. Obviously, I didn't do it because I wasn't signed up, which usually helps. And I was kind of ready, but I've kind of been sticking around, like we talk about in the ballpark. I haven't done anything crazy long, but I never really do. And here I am thinking, well, you know, the full just seems to me like, you know, obviously more of a long-term pacing element and something I can kind of handle. And then maybe if something goes right at the end, I can, you know, just have a really good race. But in a 70.3, I just don't know if I could turn it up that hard, you know, I'm talking about my satisfaction levels here again, you know.
Right.
If I try out go and you know shred 56 miles on the bike, or not shred it, but like high energy stuff, that seems a little more intimidating to me right now than just kind of, you know, quasi cruising through the long ride out there, especially the way, you know, we just did it, and it felt fine. Although, you know, it's so weird. You get done with 2 loops, you're like 80 miles, and you still had 30 to go, and all I kept thinking about was that stick. You know, we didn't do the Wisconsin stick, and on the way back the wind was just starting to go crazy on us out there, and doing hills into the wind or down crosswinds, down hills, it was kind of a little dicier. And then all I could think about was that 17 miles back, 15 16 miles back to the helix up, you know, Wayland Road, and that into the wind, man. I was like, ooh, that seems a little bit daunting right now. But I don't know, man, because I'm also last year at Chat, we were, I don't want to say, I think psychologically on some levels, both you and I were starting to turn the page. You know, it was kind of a, you know, and that's why that race did kind of bum me out, because I did think it was just something I was looking forward to, getting out there and having a really good race, and it was okay. I did fine. But then after that, it was kind of like, you know, but up here, I just feel like so much more like in my element, and I've got other things in my life. So, I'm almost at a place where I could almost see doing Wisconsin just, you know, quote unquote, for fun a little bit more, and not being so driven to go out and, you know, make it a PR and that kind of stuff. Okay with that.
You bring up a good point. Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you is like, you know, is that, because I think there's 2 sides of the coin there. It's like, hey, there's again, totally different place in life, got a whole lot more going for you. You know, Madison, Wisconsin means a whole lot more to you than, you know, Chattanooga, for a lot of reasons. But that also means, like, you know, when you're on that course, you feel like you're a different person, right? In that city and in that vibe, and you know the whole deal. It does it for me. It's one of my favorite cities and that I've ever been to, and I love going there. If you haven't been to Madison, it's awesome. It's just it's one of those cities. My mom even, like, she's been one time. She's like, anytime you're going, let me know. Loved it. Totally loved it. I mean, it's an awesome place. Do you feel like, you know, you said, hey, I think I could, you know, enjoy it, but on the flip side, it's like, do you feel like you could go and do a race in Wisconsin, in Madison, where you've had so many other memories on that course, and it not eat at you?
That's a good question, man. But excuse me. I kept thinking while I was out there, first of all, that's just, I don't know, there's something about that bike course that's my favorite place to ride. It just keeps coming, and it's just one of those. I was thinking out there, I just really enjoy riding out there. So, I can't hold back though, man. I would have to see, you know, it's just,
I was listening to you talk. I was like, you're full of shit, man.
Yeah. I mean, I would be able to, like, well, you know, I usually ride that course. I've done it in, mostly under 6 hours, for example. And my question is could I be comfortable with, you know, something like 6:15, and then hoping that I can have a better run than I've ever had up there, which is reasonable to think about. but not super reasonable at this point. We'll see. But but to me, like 6:15 versus 5:55, for example, that's a pretty big effort difference, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because, like, you know, I think about that course a lot, and there's shit tons of climbing, obviously. But climbing, you know, most people aren't going super fast up. You know, it's not like you're losing tons of ground if you're just going up it. A lot of it is you know, getting good speed on downhills and stuff like that. It just kind of comes if you let it and if you're comfortable with it. And so I always think it's weird, like, you know, what a half mile an hour difference does. And it doesn't really put you that far behind, you know, someone else in the long run. So I don't know. It was, I wasn't ready to crush the stick on the way back the other day, you know, but I still, again, it's, I'm still like,
too.
And, you know, we talk about a lot of times before, if you're kind of in, you know, if you're in 70.3 shape and you just turn the screws for about 6 to 8 weeks, you can be in pretty decent Ironman shape. So I just need some more volume and time in it. And I think I'll be fine. But, you know, it comes back to the run, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you still got 26 too, like you said, like you got, and I think again, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. Maybe they towards the end of the cast it's that whole 2.4 milestone before it, and how shelled people feel coming out of it.
Exactly. Let's talk about that.
And that lake can giveth or taketh away, and that's like. And quickly before we move on into some swim talk and some observations from the weekend, you know, I think it is because a lot of people are, you know, you and I are very much like, we're also super different in that. You know, Wisconsin, in a place like that means a lot. You know, you and I both have a ton of awesome memories there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place I'm always excited to go back. It's a race I hate missing, even if I'm not racing it, right? And just you get there and you're like, it's always felt like home away from home. Like I love it there. It's got water everywhere. It's just a really, really cool space. And I love the course too. I'm with you. Like, I like that it's always changing. It's not just head down arrow. You have to be engaged the whole time. But when you have a course like that, and I think everybody has these courses or these specific races that they always kind of go back to, they're always drawn to do. And you can either have, like, I guess, you know, two different, you know, ways to approach it or ways to feel, I guess, about it. Is like, you know, is not doing well, you know, gonna just at this course that's, you know, means so much to me, is that really gonna eat at me, and is it gonna, like, you know, put me on the shelf for weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Not just physically maybe, but just, you know, more of like a mental funk? Or is it one of those places where you're like, you know what, I just love this place so much, I could see this course and this race and this distance just kind of infusing me to kind of, you know, springboard me into a more consistent training block for next year, you know, and kind of get me excited about getting back in the swing of things. And I think those are obviously two totally different mentalities. And I think that's a question a lot of athletes, you know, should have. But most athletes, I think people fall kind of on one end of the spectrum or the other. It's like, I can't do the race unless I'm just totally in. Or they can be like, you know what? That is a race where I could swim in that lake and ride that course and run around town, see the Capitol, you know, go up the Helix, you know, Camp Randall, all those things. Be like, man, like that's the feeling that I've been missing, right? Because it is such a spectator-friendly race. It's such a cool town. It's such a great venue, and going back to places where you've had good memories always just kind of makes you feel better. You know, it's like it always just kind of like puts a little extra pep in your step. You know, you're a little bit more cheery. And then they're like, because all you've had are pretty good experiences there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that feeling of like, do I want to add a sour taste to this really sweet place? So no, I think, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about in general to people when they think of specific races. I think that's kind of like you know, the devil or angel on each shoulder is like, yeah, go do it anyway. You can crush it. And I was like, well, you've got good memories there. Do you really want to sour the taste of one of your favorite races? But listen, a lot goes into that, both physically, mentally, you know, and emotionally. But you've got time, and we'll wait for your decision next week.
That's fair enough, man. But I think that's a great point. I always talk about race energy, and certainly that place gives me more, I think, than any other course. And I think, you know, like I bank on it, you know, it's just like, and I think everyone else does too, but they don't maybe say it. But when you get out there and there's people around and you're in a race, and, you know, especially the way that bike course unfolds is just so interesting to me. And everywhere there's people out there, and we were riding up the Three Bitches the other day, and I was just thinking, man, this is kind of harder than I remembered it. But when there's people lining both sides of that hill, you just don't think about that as much, you know. And it's something that really does kind of lift you. It's the crowd energy. I bank on it, you know. So it's a good point. I just think even when I got out there, I wasn't, you know, I'm never crazy about doing training rides, but we got out there and I just was like loving it, man. It's first of all, I will have to say they've done a lot of really good things with the roads up there. There's a lot of, I mean, still a you know, beats you up a little bit. In fact, that's where I was and hurting the most was in the upper body. But there's a lot of really smooth sections that you're like, man, this used to be the worst road in here. So they've done some paving up there, and but still, I think that's underrated, the upper body strength. That's what I kept thinking about. And it's like, damn, I'm just not strong enough in the upper body right now to handle all the bumps and the, you know, the grinding. And so I don't know. We'll see.
But yeah, 2.4. Again, like I think people underestimate all the time. That's kind of what we'll segue into talking about more swim. And we had a Ohio 70.3, a race you and I have both done, you know, and we've had the former race director, Ken Hammond, on a few times. Used to love it. They changed venues from Delaware, Ohio up to Sandusky, a lot more of a tourist friendly town. Mm-hmm. And so this was the inaugural year for that. We had, I think, 15, 16 athletes total doing it up there. You know, again, it's Ohio, it's advertised, protected swim, flat bike, you know, fast run. Listen, Ohio is sneaky. It always has been, even for the old course in Delaware. And it turns out this was another super sneaky day.
Yeah, like it.
That I knew, I don't know, in the first 30 minutes when, you know, because a lot of the athletes that we have there, like I've been coaching for a while, and I kind of know when they're going to come out. First things first, no wetsuit, right? So I think water temp was like 78 or 79. So a lot of people depended on a wetsuit, and then you could tell that the later people got in, the harder the conditions got. Mm-hmm. There were swells, there was chop, it was pulling people, I think, to the right or to the left. And times were at least 6 to 10 minutes slower for our crew than they have been in the past. And then I heard, you know, one of our friends, when their spouses got pulled out of the water, and the rescue boats were full.
Wow.
And I listen, I get conditions are rough, and I get you can't totally prepare for, you know, chop and rough water and things like that. You know, that you can't perfectly prepare for that in the pool, you know, or in open water, right? Because no one's like, I think I'm going to go out in the storm today and, you know, and get in a practice swim. You know, it's like no one does that because it's not safe for most people. But I do think it's a firm reminder.
Firm reminder.
Yeah, I'm trying to phrase this. I don't get a ton of hate mail. To take the swim fucking seriously in training, because there's you, and this is honestly, like, this is more of a parental kind of dad coach rant I'm about to go on here. And it's not to say that people got rescued were ill prepared, but as a coach, and this should be for every coach, the time that I'm the most worried about something happening is, you know, you want every person to be prepared to get out of the water safely. And then obviously the bike, it's more about, you know, cars and stuff like that, but you never want anything to happen or your athletes to be in danger. And, you know, or the one trying to be saved by a rescue boat because they couldn't make it. Like, these are hugely important things. And when you look at some athletes training and you take athletes on, you see their swim training, you're like, it's no wonder how little you're doing. And it's either the swim isn't important, or it doesn't matter, or it's too short, or it's going to be a wetsuit and you'll be fine. You'll have your floaties. Well, guess what? You didn't. And the biggest thing, and I mentioned this before air, is that if you're not prepared for the swim and you just kind of think you're going to make your way through, and you have to have a wetsuit, and they don't allow you to wear one, then you need to seriously consider about not getting in the water. Because when people go down in the swim, it's because they have a cardiac event. And if there's 70, 80 lifeguards out there, and one person has a cardiac event, and those other boards and kayaks or boats, whatever, are pulling athletes out of the water that weren't prepared to swim, that didn't take it seriously, and they can't get to the guy who was prepared, or the girl who was prepared, who did all the work, but had, some kind of a cardiac event or legit panic attack, and they were totally trained. You're taking away an opportunity for someone to be helped. And I just think it's like and listen, it's not just the athlete's fault. Ironman and triathlon, we have done this the last 3 or 4 years by just totally trying to remove any kind of obstacle from the swim. You can still wear one up to 82, totally unsafe. You're going to overheat and it's horrible for you. We're going to do rolling starts, and we're going to let you in 2 to 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to string athletes out, basically 2.4 to 1.2 miles. It's made zero difference in the amount of DNFs and the amount of fatalities in the swim. I argue they probably have gone up because I've heard about them a lot more. It's not doing anybody any favors, but what we've done is, instead of trying to make it very, a very serious and sort of like, listen, this is the part of the event where, if you look at triathlon over the last 5 years, if you take away, people getting hit by cars, which is not on them, right? If you look at the fatalities in triathlon, over 90% of them, or 95% of them, come from the swim. And yet that's the one where we have tried to make it like seem so easy and so relaxed, or it's downstream and it's only 1.2. It's the shortest part of the event. Do you know how serious it is? Especially if you get in, and it's been obvious because a lot of races aren't just canceling the swims anymore. They're putting your ass in the water when it's choppy or when there's a current, right? I think it was Steelhead a few weeks ago. They shut the beach down after the swim because there was a riptide. Like open water is no joke. Open water is no joke. And if you aren't going to take your swimming seriously, and you're going to get in the water and just kind of think you can make your way through, and you're not prepared, but you can bike and run and you think you've got it, then you need to honestly really think, not only am I putting myself right in a good spot in danger, is my lack of preparedness and training and kind of my blasé attitude about swimming, am I going to be taking away the opportunity for someone else to be helped that really honestly needs it? Mm-hmm. And I do. I think that might sound stern and harsh, but it's just a fact. It's something that everybody needs to think about and be serious with themselves about. Have I done enough? Have I trained enough? Have I swam hard enough? Have I put myself through the ringer when it comes to swim workouts? Have I done, not just more than I put my pool buoy on and a wetsuit and I swam for, 4,000 yards straight. I can make it. No, that doesn't count, right? You have to be prepared. And as a coach, we take swimming, at least with C26, we take swimming incredibly serious. For that because one, it's important, but two, because you have to make sure your athletes are prepared. I've never ever worried about an athlete getting in the water and not getting out because they're not prepared. And you just from a safety issue, sometimes currents are bad, like Ironman Florida, maybe last year, 2 years ago, I think it was last year, was so insane. The pros are like 10 or 15 minutes long. Yeah, there's only so much you can do for those, but you still got to know you can make it out. And that's just, I think, again, like when we look at Ironman and we look at 70.3s, it's become kind of just like, oh, no big deal. It's a big deal. It is anytime you ask yourself to do something so physical and so demanding and so stressful on your body, you have to be prepared to do it. And I just think it's a reminder that everyone needs, that you can't take a race not serious, and you can't expect it to not be hard because that's usually a mentality when you sign up, right? Chattanooga was famous for that, right? Augusta, right. Downstream, super easy. It's still hard. It's still swimming. Like it's the one of the three. On the bike, you get tired, you coast. Yeah. Coast. Or just get off your damn bike. Running, walk, sit down on the curb. Swimming, shit. Tread water, wave. And then what do you got? People swimming all over you, dunking because they can't navigate. I'm not going to say it's dangerous, but it is the harshest of the environments of all the stuff you do, in the most crazy of environments with the least amount of ways to help you. So you've got to take it seriously in training, and you've got to take it even more serious when it comes to race day.
Yeah, I can't add much to that. I just think that it's like one of those things where, we see it all the time. Like, damn, coach, you threw a swim at me today. It's like you want them to be over prepared for the swim. It'd be ideal to be, theoretically over prepared for everything, but it's kind of hard to do that, obviously, especially in running. You know, you don't want to go out. You know what I mean? Like, but you can go swim 3,700, 4,000 pretty routinely and do a, 2,000 or whatever it is in the half, and just be like really, really in good swim shape, because like you said, shit comes up, currents and waves and people knocking you out and whatever the case may be. You want to be like super prepared for that. And it's it's a lot of work. And like you just said, man, I think that's one of the best points is like, people talk about, I'm going to, cruise in the swim. Cruising a swim for 4,400 yards is most people can't cruise that long. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to be in pretty good shape to swim that 2.5 miles. And the other thing I always just reiterate is like, we wake up, we're amped up, our heart rate's probably high, we're nervous, we're anxious, all that kind of shit. We haven't done anything. We just like walk down to the swim and don't warm up or get any kind of blood flow going through the body. It's all just kind of in your chest. You're already anxiety ridden before you get in. And then you just think you're going to like work it out in the swim. It's like, it really doesn't happen that way, because the other thing with open water is that I am 100% convinced that most people for that first 200 probably swim their best 100 pace that they can swim without realizing it.
For sure.
So it's like you have to either be really warmed up. Like sometimes people will do a run and then they'll go in the water and like, man, that swim felt awesome. Well, yeah, because your body is blood flow and you're awake and you're warmed up and shit like that. But then otherwise, it's a cold morning, you're kind of shivering in your wetsuit, and then it's like, all right, jump in the water and go at it. And then it's like from 0 to 100 right now. And then people wonder why they have, trouble finding a groove and whatever. And I'm just because I've struggled with it so much. You know me, I've had some serious swim issues over the years, and it's always been my thing to get like down there 20, 30 minutes. That's why I used to love the Wisconsin start with the mass start, is that I'd get in the water like 15 minutes early and tread water. And by the time that cannon went, I was warmed up and I was used to the water, the feel of it. And I'd be treading water and getting like my arms going. And those kind of things go so unnoticed, but I just, cause it's like, I'm just going to get in there and warm up in the swim. No, like most people don't have the calm mentality about that. And it's just like, I'm like, nice to see you this morning, but I'm going over here by this tree and I'm going to get warm. And because like, I know what, I take that shit seriously, because I always have now. I mean, I always have, but because it intimidates me, and I just need to be warmed up and ready to go when I hit that water, not 500 yards into it.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta, and I'll say this right now. It's like, as I told Hayden yesterday on our bike ride, I said, my mad voice sounds very similar to my scared voice, and vice versa. So like as a parent, like when your kid is something, you're like, watch out, or you got to keep your eye on the road. You're not mad at him. You're just like, you're scared for a minute. And they sound very much the same. And this rant is brought to you by both scared and mad all at the same time. It's because it's you and your life, right? And it's about being prepared. And I totally agree with you. If you want triathlon, you want all swims to be safe, go back to mass starts and let people sit in the water for 10 minutes. It's exposure. Let them warm up. Let them get in the water, comfortable, slowly get their heart rate up by being in the water and treading water. Safest possible environment. Safest. So much safer than the old school mass start where you get in, if you haven't seen it, or you just got in the sport, you have any idea what mass starts are. Well, they were the safest. Okay, because what you do is you get in the water, go look up Ironman Wisconsin, like 2016 or 17 mass start. Like you said, you got to get in the water. The year you and I did, I think, was the last year they had mass start there. You get in the water 10 minutes beforehand. You can either swim up to the front of the line or move your way to the back and tread water, take a bunch of strokes, get accustomed. Your heart rate's up. You're already kind of accustomed to the temperature of the water. And then when the cannon goes off, you take out of your own pace. Like there's like literally, I don't think I had any contact with anybody. I mean, anybody. You're not trying to swim over people because people still do it the right way. And that's what you need. You need exposure. You need that time to get your, the temperature of your body versus temperature of the water. That's a big thing, right? Especially if it's super hot or it's super cold. Two extremes are never good, right? And it gives you time to take a few strokes and get your blood moving up towards the top of your body. That's the safe thing. It's not let's see if we can take 2 hours to get people in the water. That's definitely safer, right? In the heat of the day, and and string them out over 1.2 miles or 2.4 mile long stream of swimmers of varying abilities. That's got to be safer for sure.
Yeah.
Instead of having them all condensed, right, to less than 2 miles, probably, if not more than that. Like it makes no sense, right? But it's not about making sense. It's not about making things safer. It's about what kind of mirage and what kind of trick can we play in the consumer that makes you think this is the safest way. It's easy. Anybody can do it. Guess what? That's not true. Anybody can't do it. That's just a fact. It's not to be like, oh, well, nothing's, everything's possible. Yeah, if you train enough. That's it. You got to put in the work. And we continue, like I had an athlete text me on like maybe Thursday, and it was like, hey, that workout you did, it seemed very similar to a ramp test. It was like a 20-hour and 20-minute session. It was not very easy. It wasn't a test at all, but I think it must have mirrored like these like 8-minute ramp tests that he's like, yeah, all my buddies are into these like ramp tests. I'm like, yeah, because they're 8 fucking minutes long. Yeah. Who doesn't want to be into 8 minutes long, if anything, versus 60 minutes or 30 or the other tests that we use? I'm like, everyone looks for a shortcut. Shorter, easier, not demanding, but yeah, that's still the same. That's all we're doing. And the sport hasn't changed at all. Same distances, same environments, same demands as the last 40 years. But what we've done is we've tried to make things continuously easier and easier. It's okay, man. You got this. Just 2.4. Hello, are you serious? If you walked onto the beach and I said, swim 1.2 miles out in the middle, would you do it? Most people are like, hell no. I'm not going all the way out there. That's what you do when you swim. No one would do it. But guess what? Everyone can see you 1.2 because you're the only person out there. Put 3,000 people in the water, half of y'all's strokes look like you're waving your arms anyway, asking somebody to get you. So good luck someone trying to find you. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. And yes, I always get super passionate and kind of, we'll say firm about swimming because it's the one where you have to get it done because you cannot rely on help. You just can't. Like I said before, you can't get off your bike, you can't walk, you can't sit down. You're out. Sometimes a whole half mile, 1 mile out in the middle of nowhere. And you're going to depend on what? Most trailers don't depend on anybody. Like we're pretty self-sufficient, independent, athletes. They just want to get the job done. Then you got to get the job done in training. And if you haven't, you have to have an honest conversation. Like, you know what? I just didn't do the work. Yeah, I can bike and run, but guess what? This isn't a duathlon, it's triathlon. And I'd argue 50%, if not more, triathletes train like duathletes and they train like triathletes. It's swim, bike, and run. And your swimming affects your cycling and your running way more than you'll ever think. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum on many podcasts, but it does. It affects. So that's like the first thing I think about. People like, that 80 miles didn't feel too bad, or the 100 miles didn't feel too bad, but like you still have to swim 2.4. Like, and for most people, the average athlete takes an hour and 15 minutes or longer of high exertion effort in swimming, all upper body, to do that in a really weird environment that is water. It's just like it's a different environment for people. And I have athletes that sometimes will swim in the high 20s for a 7.3 or low 30s, and then sometimes out of nowhere they'll have a panic attack for no reason, like for just out of nowhere. And then they they still gather themselves and make it through. But it's like one of those things where you have to have a certain level of competency. Right, like you got marathons and people that will walk the entire marathon and say they ran a marathon, right? But there's a certain level of competency you have to have in swimming. In most people, and then to be frank, a lot of coaches just aren't either proficient enough or they don't want to make their athletes do it enough because it's kind of like coaching is still a little bit of sales, and you want people to hire you want people to do this, but they don't like swimming. They don't want to do it, and I don't want to make it too hard because then they won't do it. It's not your job, right? It's like being a parent. It's not my job. My job isn't for you to like me. My job isn't for me, if it isn't for you to love me. And I've said this for, I think, one of our very first podcasts, is that I don't care if you like me or love me at all throughout the entire training process, but I promise you'll love me after you're done. And because you have to train people to get them prepared. Not that they might like it or not like it, but because that's where we're at now with things. Like, I don't like it, I don't want to go. I mean, it's just we have frankly we have way too many choices now to opt out of doing things, and that's become like accepted. I don't really feel like it, or I can't go, or if this isn't make, or I can wear a pull buoy, or this. I'm like, just take it seriously. Prepare for the hardest. Prepare for it to be the hardest, and then if it's the easiest, or in its easiest version, then you're going to feel like you did nothing, versus accepting that it's, anticipating it being the easiest swim ever, right? And then it being really difficult, and then you did half the training, because that's a mentality people have. That's not going to be easy. There's nothing easy. Nothing. Nothing easy about triathlon. Nothing easy about a sprint. Nothing easy about a 5K. You hear it all the time, I really underestimated the conditions today. Okay, think about race day. And just really just a good reminder of all things triathlon and all things training and racing. Never take it for granted. Never assume it's going to be easy, or never assume it's going to be a walk in the park. Just because you've done it before doesn't mean it's not going to suck or be hard today.
Man.
Yeah, I know I got a little.
Well, no, that's good, man.
Chest.
If our arms aren't prepared, and like I was saying, at mile 60 or 80 or whatever, my arms got screwed up on the bike, and we talk about that. Like, is your upper body strong? I'd like to give a quick shout out to the core right now, because when you swim a lot, you should be developing your core a lot more, and you should be working on your core in general. And that's kind of where I am at right now, because that's the thing I think that happens is we talk about it, but the thing about being an aero, and this is what took me a long time to figure this out, but you shouldn't be leaning on your arms as much as you are, probably. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's like, I can just relax down here. But then after 60, 70, 80 miles of bumpy roads, your shoulders are all jacked up, but you want to be kind of light on your aero bars. And I think a lot of that stems from the core, right? If you have an active core through your ride, you're not putting as much pressure on your shoulders and shit like that. And if you have an active core in your swim, you're not putting as much pressure on your shoulders and arms and things. So I just think that's a really important thing, because you look at, we know a lot of times that's probably what happens. Like, you watch the second loop of a run, an Ironman run, everybody's like hunched over. They can't, their core can't hold it up anymore, So that's just something I always like to tell people is like, do some stuff, man. Work your core. Build up your strength, your upper body strength, because it's usually that, your ass hurts or your whatever, and it's most of the time it's not the legs giving out. Is what I'm getting at. It seems like, at least for me on the bike, it's usually like that last 30 miles or 20 miles is all about, man, I can't even get out of my aero bars sometimes because my shoulder hurts so bad. It's like pushing up and whatever. But I think just working the full body. And I think that's really another great benefit of pushing that swim further and being stronger in the water.
Be stronger, but just be stronger overall, and just be prepared. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys some love on Thursday and ease up on you a little bit, but seriously, like, come on, it's for your own good. It's for your own good. We've had a few people, we can end it. We have a few people comment in the last, a year or so. They're like, yeah, listen to your podcast. It's kind of like going to church. And you know what? Sometimes you walk in, you get the loving sermon where everybody's like, wants to come down and get saved afterwards, and everybody's jubilating. And then some days you walk in,
it's hell and fury.
Hellfire and brimstone. The preacher just lays it down, and you walk out of there, and your mom looks at you, and she's like, mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, I know. Gotta get it together. That's it. Brought to you by Pastor Bruce right here. Okay, you're gonna bring it here, and you'll thank yourself after, because it's about being prepared. It's about being saved. It's about setting yourself up for success. Even though it might not sound like it, it's tough love, and we love you. We love our listeners. We love all of you. We appreciate you tuning in for us twice a week, as you have for about the last 6 years, and we hope we see you all in Wisconsin. We'll be there regardless of the distances that Mike chooses to do. I'll be doing the 70.3, and we'll be staying in our favorite hotel, Best Western Inn on the Park. Discount code C26. Just kidding. We don't get any discount code for them, but we love them. They're awesome. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's a one-stop shop you have for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for a coach to help you out the rest of the year, click on the coaches tab, find the one that's right for you. If you want to hear any of our sermons, they're posted online. No, just kidding. You can. We have more info on our camps. We have some camp slots open, I think, for our camp next year in March in Texas, and I think a few slots left for our Nashville camp. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he is at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, bud.
All right, dude. We'll see you Thursday.
Thursday it is. Thanks, everybody.